Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. In a few minutes, Pamela Anderson joins us. She'll tell us about her visit to the Kremlin recently and her relationship with Julian Assange. An interesting conversation. But first tonight, you probably heard that Melania Trump had a kidney operation last month. That kind of thing happens to 48-year-olds, even famous ones. She took a few weeks to recover, stayed off TV, didn't give any speeches, all pretty typical for someone who just got out of the hospital. But over at CNN, they were not buying that story. They are proud journalists at CNN, self-consciously proud. And if there's one thing they know for certain, one thing that was drummed into them at the top-shelf journalism schools they attended, it's that Republican first ladies lie a lot and are evil and for the sake of civilization must be destroyed. So CNN did not buy a word of that, and the network assigned its most dogged journalist to crack the case, the squeaky but persistent Brian Stelter, who hosts some kind of weekend show that no civilian television viewer has ever actually seen. Stelter understood immediately that the whole kidney operation story was just a cover for something darker and more sinister, likely another international scandal emanating from that dark lord Vladimir Putin himself. Stelter hinted as much to his viewers. Watch.
One thing that the president and the White House have been quite quiet about is Melania Trump and her status. The last time we caught a glimpse of her was on May 10th, 24 days, more than 3 weeks. There's been a lot of questions about her surgery, her time at Walter Reed, and now her invisibility.
Questions about her surgery? Questions about her time at Walter Reed? What questions exactly? Who's asking those questions? Brian Stelter didn't say because he couldn't say. Those are not real questions, and this is not reporting. It's a passive-aggressive attack. CNN's real point was that Melania Trump is a liar, and she's doing something immoral. She must be. Look who she's married to. Stephen Colbert came to the same conclusion. Watch.
As of the time we're taping this show right now, the First Lady has not been in public for 25 days. Well, I'm not surprised. It took that Shawshank guy years to tunnel out. Melania is supposedly reemerging to attend an event in the White House tonight, but who can be sure? Because the event will be closed to the press. But the White House did release this official photo proving the First Lady was totally there.
Over at Rolling Stone, which apparently still exists, someone called Jamil Smith speculated that Melania Trump was in hiding to conceal signs of physical abuse. At The Atlantic, David Frum agreed and then suggested that the president may have punched Melania and then ordered the Secret Service to cover it up. Keep in mind that once upon a time, David Frum was a serious intellectual, or what passed for one in Washington. Now he's merely a buffoon. And even more buffoonish as of last night, when the actual Melania Trump showed up at the White House for a veterans event, very much alive and unscathed. So much for all those questions Brian Stelter pretended to care about. What's so interesting about all of this is how much journalists hate Melania Trump. Imagine hating Melania Trump. Whatever else she is, Melania Trump is not an overbearing public figure. She's not lecturing you about your weight or trying to control your personal life. She doesn't weigh in on, I don't know, tax rates or global warming. It's unlikely she will run for Senate from New York when this is all over. Nobody thinks she's one of her husband's key political advisors. You may never even have heard Melania Trump's voice. Many people haven't. She doesn't talk much in public. Melania Trump has done absolutely nothing wrong to you or anyone you know or anyone you will ever meet. She married Donald Trump. That is her only sin in the eyes of the press corps, and yet it's enough to disqualify her even from the most basic consideration of decency. Here, for example, is super-sensitive modern guy comedian Jimmy Kimmel making fun of her accent, which he thinks is silly and foreign-sounding. Alien, really.
I'm curious, just like a cat. Ask lots of questions about this and that.
About this and that.
So do you think Kimmel would be okay mocking the accent of one of his many Guatemalan housekeepers? How about of an MS-13 member? Please, that'd be racist. But Melania? Well, she's Trump, therefore she's guilty. There was a time when the left used to argue that people ought to be judged for what they do, not for whom they're related to. We're all individuals, liberals were forever telling us, and thank God they were. Collective punishment is wrong. It is immoral. That's what they said. Did they ever really believe that? Who knows, but they definitely don't believe it now. Mark Penn was an advisor to President Clinton. Tammy Bruce is a New York radio show host. They both join us now. First to you, Tammy. What do you make of, just to be totally clear, I never typically defend the honor of politicians. In fact, as a rule, I don't. But Melania Trump's not a politician. Why are they attacking her? What does she have to do with it?
You know, in large part, it's because they're jealous. and they're envious. Here you've got a woman who has power, she has influence, she's perfectly lovely, she's smart, she speaks 5 languages. Yes, she married a man that they don't like, but she has access now to everything that they now do not have access to. They used to be the ones who would be fawned over, who would be looked to for power and for appointment and for credibility. Now it's a woman who never really cares about them, has gone to certainly some cocktail parties, but doesn't care about what the elite in Washington necessarily thinks or says. She cares about her son, she cares about her family, she cares about her parents, and that's her crime as well. But keep in mind, of course, this is for every woman who has dared to be part of this administration. And this is where, when you talk about the hypocrisy of the left, is the attacks on these women are misogynistic. And look, let me say about the attacks on the First Lady in particular, when they talk about her either being beaten by the president or hiding in Walter Reed or having to secrete herself away, it presumes that she's a victim, that she's helpless, that she is not willing to take care of her own life. That kind of misogyny is an insult not just to the First Lady, but for women who do experience violence and domestic violence. And yet these are the people who are supposed to be the champions for women. The fact of the matter is that the arguments about championing women come from, at this point, from the center-right argument that women are individuals, that they're smart, that the First Lady's an example of a powerful woman living a life that best suits her. And she should be lauded for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and she certainly never bothered anybody. Mark Penn, what I find so interesting about this, I'm trying to imagine the conversation where Jeff Zucker over at CNN calls up his sad little errand boy that's dealt her kid and says, go ahead and attack, it's time to attack Melania, okay? And I'm thinking, if you really think that it's appealing to attack Melania Trump, of all people you can attack, Melania Trump, your judgment has been distorted.
Well, it's not politically smart right now. If you look at the last CNN poll, she was at 57% favorable. She had 53% of the women favorable to her, much higher percentage of men because men are more Republican. But that means that you don't want to attack Melania because you're attacking the voters that you need. And they probably see this as a kind of wrong idea because no one uses silence better than Melania Trump. And that silence, you see, now has all of America waiting to tune in tomorrow when she reappears on the scene. So politically, given her ratings, it's not a very smart thing for columnists and others who worked on this.
You sort of ran the political operation at the White House for a long time, and you used data to do it, heavily used data. When people become so emotional and when a political cause becomes a moral cause, pretty hard for them to make rational decisions, isn't it?
Well, I think that's right. I think that a lot of what we see today is about getting back to rationality in our politics. Now, Hillary Clinton, as First Lady, endured a lot of attacks when she went into health care and controversial issues. But when she went to It Takes a Village, the country united. Melania Trump is not in controversial issues. She's trying to help kids. She's doing those things that the country can agree upon. So it doesn't make sense.
So I guess what I dislike about this whole thing, Tammy, is the way that the left has framed everything as a moral divide. So it's like nothing about Trump can be good, and everything that is against Trump must be good. That seems like an inherently insane way to look at the world.
Well, it is. In and of itself, it's immoral. But let me say also that the attacks on the First Lady are personal. We can talk about Hillary getting into policy. That's fine. Let's deal with policy issues. But remember also, the attacks on the First Lady, I would contend, are because attacks on the president don't work. And I think that there's an inherent decision here to destroy his base of support. And that is why I think she has now been targeted. Clearly, she's a strong woman. She knows what's going on here. The media tries to infantilize her, but she's going to stick to do with what matters to her, children's lives and supporting her son and her family. So this is the irony of what it is, of course, the media is doing and what maybe even some of the establishment is doing, which is claiming that Donald Trump is immoral, and then they move and do every single thing that they try to project onto the president, which is that he's bad for women, he treats women badly, he doesn't respect them, and yet every single thing they're doing reveals that That's what the
I know
media
the irony
does.
bomb has just gone off once again. Mark, you don't think it's going to work though as a political matter?
I think this will be over tomorrow. She'll be back. I think she has actually gotten more astute about handling the office of First Lady, and you saw that in her rise. Donald Trump's at about 40% favorable, and she's at 57. There are very few people in the country now who can break 50. We're so polarized.
Yeah,
Great
maybe
point.
she should run from New York. Thank you both. Tammy, Mark, I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Britt Hume is, of course, our senior political analyst here at Fox News, and he joins us now. So if you're the Democrats, boy, you've got to take the House back. You promised your people you're going to. You've told them Satan occupies the White House. This is not just an opposition, it's a resistance. Does stuff like this help them in their objective to do that?
Now, it possibly can, Tucker, but it reflects something that's very real about the Democrats and their current dilemma, which is that everything, absolutely everything, is about Donald Trump. You talk about living free in someone else's head. The obsessions with him. There's an obsession with him which carries into everything. To give you an example, tonight, thinking about Kate Spade's apparent suicide, I posted a little meme on Twitter. So I've had it in my photos for a long time, and it says, it's very simple. It says, everyone you know is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
That's true.
Be kind, always be kind. Donald Trump was the farthest thing from my mind when I posted it. The responses, a huge percentage of the responses were about him, about Trump. Can you imagine? I mean, this is what they call Trump derangement.
I mean, you're not only a political, obviously, reporter, but an observer of people. What is that about? I think Trump is interesting. Don't get me wrong.
Well, yeah, is
he interesting to the exclusion of every other thing in the world? No.
That's the problem.
So what is this?
He is an exotic character to the President of the United States, and he has many foibles, which we've discussed here, and we all recognize. But the level of loathing of him transcends anything I've ever seen. Now, believe me, we've had plenty of hated politicians.
Yes, I know.
We've had hated first ladies. Hillary Clinton was despised by many, and so was Michelle Obama. But they both were at least more visible and active than is the case with Melania Trump. The loathing of her husband spills over onto her, and that's what we're seeing here. And it is almost a force of nature. And I think one of the things that's happened is because there was such a wellspring of antipathy toward him and resistance to his presidency that a great many Democratic politicians thought, wait, I got to get on that bandwagon and stay on it, or else I'll be voted off the island, right? So that is where they are. And I think to some extent it has precluded them from thinking through, well, what was it about Trump that succeeded, and what message and ideas can we develop that would allow us to overcome that and get back into power? And I don't know that I can't think of a message they carry into this campaign that might get them there. And I don't think Hillary Clinton had much of a message either. I mean, I'm with her, forward together or whatever it was, better together, whatever it was. That was no slogan.
Slovenians have funny accents. But before we go, just because it really struck me, can you just repeat the aphorism that you put on Twitter? Because I think that may be the most important.
Everyone you know is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind. Always be kind. I had people say to me, well, how can you say that? You support Trump. I had people say, tell that to Trump. I mean, people are totally obsessed with him.
Yeah, and we're ignoring one another's humanities in that obsession. Everyone you know has a battle you know nothing about. Be kind. Amen.
Yeah,
Britt Hume, thank you.
You bet.
President Trump is upset that the Inspector General's report from DOJ still has not been released, and it hasn't been released. What is the holdup exactly? We'll find out next. Plus, Pamela Anderson joins us to discuss her friendship with WikiLeaks' Julian Assange and with Vladimir Putin. You probably didn't guess that. We didn't. We've got details from her. Stay tuned. So what's the difference between a creepy porn lawyer and a televangelist? Simple. One of them manipulates people's vulnerable emotions to solicit money and enrich himself, and the other is a televangelist. The creepy porn lawyer and his sole client, Stormy Daniels, have already raised $550,000 for more than 16,000 deluded fans. But of course they want more. They always do. Stormy Daniels says she needs at least $850,000 to cover her legal expenses, which of course consist mostly of retaining the creepy porn lawyer. Don't be fooled if you encounter the creepy porn lawyer holding up a Bible in your living room or leading a gospel choir in your backyard. Stand back, don't give him money or try and toss him morsels of stale bread. Escape. President Trump technically controls the Department of Justice, but when it comes to the Inspector General, he seems to restrict his oversight to Twitter. Today, the president tweeted this: "What is taking so long with the Inspector General's report on crooked Hillary and slippery James Comey? Numerous delays. Hope report is not being changed and made weaker. There are so many horrible things to tell. The public has a right to know transparency." Which raises the question, where exactly is that report? Why haven't we seen it? What could be in it? Byron New York follows all of this for the Washington Examiner, and he joins us tonight. Byron, what do we know about this report?
Well, I'm afraid the president's going to have to wait a little longer. It appears that it's going to be delayed again. The Senate Judiciary Committee had scheduled a hearing for today where they were supposed to talk about it. Well, that got delayed until next Monday, the 11th. Now I'm hearing it might be delayed beyond that. The reasons, feet are being dragged somewhere in this process. There is a hang-up with classified information, and perhaps the most intriguing in the last at least month or 6 weeks, the Inspector General has gotten new information and actually interviewed new people. Don't know exactly what that's about, but it shows an investigation that's been going on.
What do we know about the content so far?
All right, it's going to be probably close to 500 pages, and you can expect a lot of discussion on several topics. Expect a lot of discussion about that Loretta Lynch, Bill Clinton meeting on the tarmac in Arizona. He has looked in, the Inspector General has looked into that a lot. Expect a lot of discussion on James Comey's decision to draft an exoneration memo for Hillary Clinton long before she'd interviewed Hillary Clinton, or at least a dozen other important witnesses. Expect a lot of discussion on whether Comey was trying to affect the outcome of the election on October 28th before the election day.
Yes.
In which he reopened the investigation. The Democrats specifically wanted the Inspector General to look into that. Look into discussion about when Andrew McCabe first learned that there were Hillary Clinton emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Remember that? That was the reason that Comey reopened the investigation, but what we found out was that McCabe knew about it much earlier in October. Did he drag his feet? If so, why was that? Just a couple of more things. Look for discussion of Comey's long statement on July 5th in 2016 saying that Hillary Clinton would not be charged. That was not the way these decisions are usually announced, so there's going to be an investigation of that. Look into why Loretta Lynch did not appoint a special counsel to look into this, and why Andrew McCabe took so long to recuse himself. Remember, his wife had gotten a huge Clinton-related contribution. Last thing, the thing we've heard the most about, which is McCabe versus Comey on this leaking thing. McCabe says, well, you told me it was okay to leak, and Comey said, well, no, I didn't. We may not get a whole lot more on that simply because we've already gotten a lot through the Office of Professional Responsibility.
So the other thing that people are waiting for is some resolution to the McCabe question. So apparently we have read that he committed perjury or lied to federal agents in the course of an investigation into himself. That would be for civilians a felony. Is that a felony in his case? Will he be charged?
Well, we don't know. There has been a criminal referral to the Justice Department to look into this. And by the way, it has now been reported McCabe was invited to testify at this hearing, Judiciary Committee hearing, whenever it is, and he has asked for immunity in exchange for his testimony. If he doesn't get it, he would have to take the Fifth Amendment. So unlikely to see him say anything to them, but clearly he is concerned about criminal exposure from whatever is in this report.
500 pages.
It's a long read.
I can't wait. Byron New York, I think one of the most credible sources of information on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Philadelphia Eagles were set to visit the White House. That was canceled, of course, over the national anthem. What does it tell us about America and what this country wants? Charlie LaDuff joins us next. Plus, Pamela Anderson comes on to discuss her concerns about her friend Julian Assange. Turns out she's also friends with Vladimir Putin. Amazing. Quite a conversation. Stay tuned. President Trump was supposed to honor the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles at the White House today, but instead that ceremony was canceled after the White House noted that Eagles players had boycotted the visit, some of them. Instead, a patriotic event honoring the national anthem was held. This isn't the first political tiff we've seen like this, but it is redolent with symbolism. Both the anthem and the celebration of sports champions have become politicized. What is happening to this country exactly? Charlie LaDuff is a longtime reporter, Pulitzer Prize winner, worked at the New York Times for a long time, author of a new book whose title we can't tell you, Bleep Show, The Country's Collapsing. Charlie LaDuff joins us tonight. Charlie, thanks a lot for coming on. You've traveled the country outside the cities more than I think any reporter I know, and so maybe you're best situated to answer the question, what are people really worried about? What do Americans stare at the ceiling tiles and think of at night?
Their children, the future of their children, how they're going to eat, how they're going to get educated, if the water's going to be clean, if there's going to be work, how much debt they're going to be piled with. I mean, they're worried about their brothers who come back from a war and they get popsicle sticks to walk around on and they don't get an appointment at the VA. They're worried about their families. I think Americans are pretty rugged, pretty tough people, and they're not scared for themselves. But when you look out into the long distance and you look at an establishment, an elite establishment that doesn't care about you, and the media looks at you as an abstract, you get angry. So I just think they're worried about the future.
Do you think I mean, you would know since you spent a lot of your life in elite media, you think that the media do look at the rest of the country as abstractions?
Don't you think? Don't you think we got caught out and the media apologized for not understanding what was happening, and that they're going to they promised to double down and get to know the people, and yet they haven't, because the split screens turned into an octagon and the desk is now 2 desks with the host walking in between, and this guy over here keeps trying to put makeup on me and I don't want it. Yeah.
You tell him to stop.
I was like, come on, man, I don't wear makeup.
But what about that? I mean, that's kind of a great question that I'd forgotten, to be completely honest. After November, there was this feeling that, gee, we kind of missed the story. Maybe we should, get into that dark space between Georgetown and Malibu, but no one ever did. I mean, you live in the Midwest.
I do.
Why did nobody ever venture out there to find out what was going on?
Well, because it's too hard. Because you'll go there when Flint's poisoned, but you don't come later when it's kind of not poisoned, right? What happened to Flint? Come on back. Or let me just say this. It wasn't it's not a great white menace, right? You know how many people were at Charlottesville? You know how many of these racist baboons were there? I don't know. The media never bothered to count, because you want to make this, well, half of Trump's voters are just flat out racist. It's not true. 9 million of them voted for Obama, and 4 million blacks decided not to vote because they're not going with the establishment, elite, crooked Hillary. They just weren't doing it. And so, again, it's about jobs, it's about work. And I know, unemployment's low, but what's it paying? What are wages really doing? What's the wealth look like? How come so many people live in apartments? It's serious out there, and it goes all the way from Boston to Bakersfield. And it's time y'all come out, take a look, and spend some time, some real time.
What do you think the biggest story we're missing is from the cities?
There's no loot, dude. That, from where I live, we think it's a house of cards again. It feels like 2006 again. Like the Dow's overblown, right? And real estate's overblown. And you're nervous about if you're even going to buy a house, because is your timing wrong again? What's the monetary policy? You're trying to make decisions for your people, and you're not sure and it's not just America. Look at Britain, look at Austria, look at Italy, look at Mexico, look at Brazil. The whole world's sort of shaking. And that, we need to get in there, but it's a real scary place to get to.
I totally agree with that. I feel that way too. I can't quite put it into words, but I know that you're onto something. And I haven't read your book, but I'm going to, because I read all your books. Charlie Duff, thank you for that.
Everybody says that. Thanks, brother.
Everybody said, and they're right. Good to see you. Out in Chicago, Catholic priest Michael Pfluger has made a name for himself championing gun control. He's particularly vehement in his attacks on gun sellers. This is Obama's friend. You'll remember him when you see his picture. Pfluger once called for a gun seller, to be, quote, snuffed out. He blames gun stores for the existence of illegal guns. Here's a sample.
No child is safe right now while guns are accessible and on the streets all over our country. We must hold gun shops and gun runners accountable. And those who purchase the guns and sell them illegally.
What a demagogue that guy is. You can probably guess where this story's going. Anti-gun activists are highly predictable. Father Pfluger is happy to denounce the gun rights of you and me, and yet photos at rallies show that he is routinely, brace yourself, protected by multiple armed guards. And of course, it gets even weirder than that. One of Flager's bodyguards was arrested just last week for standing outside his church playing with an illegal gun. So maybe it's time for Father Flager to be held accountable himself. Of course, he won't be. China's efforts to spy in this country are more aggressive than ever. Will Congress ever do anything about that? We'll talk to one congressman on that question next. Plus, Pamela Anderson here to discuss her friendship with Julian Assange and Vladimir Putin. The most unlikely story of the evening. Stay tuned.